Let's talk about Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader who was just killed in Iran.
Because this is a big story.
A major development in the Middle East.
There was a strike on the place Haniyeh was staying in Tehran. Iran is accusing Israel of assassinating him and says it will respond. Haniyeh was the political leader of Hamas. He's been involved in ceasefire talks over Gaza, and he's normally based in Qatar. But he was in Iran to attend the inauguration of the new president. Haniyeh's assassination throws up a lot of questions, so let's speak to an expert about this. Abdullah, thanks so much for hopping on. First up, who was Ismail Haniyeh?
Yeah, Ismail Haniyeh was the head of the political office of Hamas, the Islamic resistance movement known by its acronym Hamas. He was born in a Gaza refugee camp, as many of the leaders of the organization were, to parents who, of course, survived the Nakba in 1948, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their villages and cities nearby. And then eventually he became not just the prime minister of the Palestinian Authority, but then eventually the head of Hamas's political bureau in exile in the last 5 years, where he's overseen, among other things at least, its diplomatic initiatives, its relations with foreign governments, as well as more recently, and perhaps more crucially, the ceasefire negotiations that have been ongoing with Israel since last October.
Is there any doubt that Israel was behind this?
Well, I mean, if we look historically, right, I don't think there's a single state in modern history that has cemented the practice of political assassination as a cornerstone of its foreign policy as Israel has. And so in that sense, I don't think that there is that much doubt, certainly given everything that we know historically.
And what does this mean for Hamas? Does it weaken them? Could it strengthen their resolve somehow?
There have been many different assassinations of this caliber going back to especially perhaps the killing of Sheikh Yassin in 2004. And of course, we've only seen Hamas evolve and not really diminish both its resolve or its ability to really continue to be a force in this conflict. And so as a result, I think no one is expecting this to kind of serve any sort of a fatal blow necessarily, but simply is going to usher in a different era.
Now, before we get into what this means for the region, let's just remind ourselves quickly about the links between Hamas and Iran. Hamas is basically a part of what's called Iran's axis of resistance. It's basically a network of groups that Iran supports to spread its influence in the region. It includes militias in Iraq and Syria, the group Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and also the Houthis in Yemen. So, Abdullah, people have been talking about the risk of a regional conflict for a while now because of the war in Gaza. But arguably, it's already happening, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we think, again, if you sort of zoom out for the moment and we look at the last 10 months, Israel has attacked and killed Egyptians, Lebanese, Syrians, Iraqis, Iranians, Yemenis. So 6 different countries have been attacked across this region. So the real question, I think it's the question of what will the scale of the retaliation look like? And again, in past assassinations that we've seen, including the assault on the Iranian embassy in Damascus by Israel some months ago, the conversation at that point was, will Iran unleash a retaliatory attack that is going to actually launch a massive full-scale war between both parties that would likely then embroil the United States and perhaps other countries across this region? That did not happen. And then, of course, it's still quite early to tell. But certainly this is yet another escalation, given the circumstances, given the context, given the profile of the individual involved who's been killed, given the fact that it's also happened on the heels of yet another assassination attempt happening in Beirut just hours earlier. So there's clearly a much more aggressive attempt to escalate, an attempt to bring in actors beyond even this region, perhaps even including the US.
And what do you think Haniyeh's death means for Palestinians in Gaza and the Israeli hostages there?
It's certainly not an encouraging sign from the perspective of attempting to reach a negotiated solution that would entail the exchange of prisoners, that would entail a cessation of hostilities by taking the leading negotiator, right, the head of the negotiations team from the Palestinian side. This essentially does away with any possibility that in the foreseeable future there could be a negotiated solution. So in a sense, I think this certainly shows that there is no relief to come from these actions.
Hope that was useful. Check out our show Start Here for more in-depth explainers like this one about Hezbollah, and check out our full playlist of episodes here.